Yesterday we had 3 breakout sessions, and I would like to give a report out on each of those. Eduardo Ojeda led the Developing the Profession in Mexico session, and here are the highlights from that session. In 1992, the accounting profession in Mexico was transformed into a resource that would serve as an example to many Latin American countries. It was during that year that the profession instituted a competency exam and required more than just a university education in order to become licensed. In accordance with the IFAC recommendations, Mexico recently implemented a peer review program, and we definitely look forward to hearing more about the progress of that over the next couple of years. Eduardo provided an excellent snapshot of what it would take to develop the profession, and it is hoped that Mexico will be able to share that model with neighboring countries in Central and South America. Next, Ken Bishop led the cross-border enforcement session. The attendees discussed how the mobility effort was successfully implemented in the United States, providing consistency in cross-border practice and enforcement. The possibility and opportunity for Canada and other countries to implement a similar model was also discussed, and Ken, on behalf of NASBA, offered to help any interested group or country. So please feel free to reach out to Ken or your NASBA contact if you would require any type of assistance. The topics covered by Noel and Bree Allen regarding the Texas research and also unlicensed firm registration was discussed. Then I facilitated the discussion on the Uniform Accountancy Act, and we did have some duplication in our topics that were discussed to the cross-border enforcement as I had planned. We did give an update and background on the Uniform Accountancy Act Committee, and the UAA, which is a model, as you saw partly from the items that Noel just showed, it's a model template of statute and rules that's essentially serving as a resource for the U.S. state boards of accountancy. We discussed the potential for international mobility and heard some examples of the differing requirements for entry of firms and individuals into different countries. We briefly touched on the issue of firm names, specifically the use of a branded or global network name as part of the firm name. This is a recent and current project of the UAA and is very close to adoption. I would say that we also obtained a lot of great input for topics for next year's conference out of each of these breakout sessions. And now to wrap up, it is my pleasure to introduce a man that really doesn't even need an introduction, but David Costello, who is our CEO and president of NASBA, would like to make a few closing comments. David?
Well, y'all so quiet out there. All right, now we've got to go out of here. We came in here all excited and full of vitality. That's the way we got to leave today, okay? So we need a few people whistling, some of you laughing, so that anybody out there will realize that we've just had a tremendous time here. And I think we have had a tremendous conference. Some had to leave a little early, but those of you who have stayed, I think you've gotten the full benefit of it. We began the conference with a great video, and the grand message of that video is the world is watching. What are we showing? Well, we touched upon some of the things that we're showing here. One of the questions that occurred to me, are we showing divisiveness and differences? Are we highlighting that to the world? If we are, we're about the wrong thing. No, we've got to be showing a resolve to harmonize and to come together and to become more uniform in all of our issues. And that's what this conference is about. Hopefully we can get closer to it. You know, I was reminded of, when we talked about differences, I was reminded about Bill Tracy, who recently went to Australia, and he was there visiting an Australian farmer and touring his ranch. And they came upon a wheat field. And Bill, being gracious, said, "Oh, what a nice wheat field. How many acres would that be?" And the farmer said, "Oh, here in Australia, about an average of 200 acres per wheat field." Bill said, "Well, that's nice, but back in Texas, where I come from, our wheat fields are 1,000, 5,000 acres. They walk a little bit farther, and they come upon a herd of cattle. And Bill says, "Oh, cattle, how many cattle are usually in a herd?" He said, "Oh, they average about 300-400 cattle and a herd. Bill said, back in Texas, our longhorns not only are twice as big as your animals, but about 1,000, 5,000 head. Well, they walk on and they come up on some kangaroos. And Bill says, my goodness, what are those? And the Aussie says, my goodness, you don't recognize or have grasshoppers in Texas? So we all have our differences. We just must not, emphasize and exaggerate the differences. I tell you, what we've talked about the title of this conference being the future of international regulation, but we were reminded yesterday that really instead of something bland as just the future, it should be making the future of international regulation. And there were 4 or 5 grand ideas offered up how we can make the future of international regulation. One is maintaining emphasis on audit quality and audit fit and purpose. Number 2, make sure that there are high-quality global standards. The debate is not about whether or not we should have high-quality global standards. The debate is how do we effectively get there for all of us? And I think that's what we're trying to do. There should be a global view of education, both classroom, experiential kinds of learning, practical experience. We heard that from Denny Riggle today. We couldn't agree more. And then Noel and Bree Allen reminded us that there must be consistent regulation internationally. We must have confidence that when things are going wrong with either our CPAs or your chartered accountants, whatever, that there will be consistent regulation that is pro-public, pro-profession, but also punitive when necessary. And we need that. The one thread that weaves through, and it was a topic of many of our speakers, although it wasn't the central core of their message, but a topic weaving throughout everything that was said is about ethics. There's got to be a bedrock ethics concern. There's got to be this weaving of integrity and honesty, fair play in everything we do, not only in the professional, but also in the firms and also in the clients that we audit. So in front of you is this brochure about the Ethics Network. It's NASBA's way through the Center for the Public Trust to try to put a face on ethics. I think if you will read through this, you may very well want to become a member of this Ethics Network for us to help us to promote ethics in our professionals, ethics in our clients, and ethics in all the firms. That's what we're trying to do in the companies throughout the country and throughout the world. So join us in that effort, if you will. We appreciate not only your attendance here, we are honored by your presence, and we look forward to next year's conference. Y'all be safe, have a good time, go in peace. Thank you very much.